Hello everybody! So, this is take 2. I actually recorded this once before. Everything got screwed up. So, here we go. The new Snapshot has actually a couple simple features to it, really. One of the major ones that's going to affect some of the gameplay, what you'll see in-game most of the time, is that they've updated maps, so now when you put them in a frame, you actually will see that it covers the entire block. Let's see. Pull this off here. And I can pull that. I could put this on a block, and you will see it covers up all the way to the corner. Just a little bit of a gap. But the nice thing is when you put them side by side, they overlap completely. So now you can set up some huge maps. I worked a little bit, pulled up a couple maps, and so you can see a large area here, all of it uncovered, all of it fitting together pretty well. These little dots are, if you know, a map will actually show where you are on the map when you create it. So these are actually also showing other maps in the world. A couple of these ones, the map's up over here, so they show up there. And another feature they've been working on is they've actually been updating the video settings menu. A couple things they did. First, the render distance, instead of having the 4 different settings, you can actually set it to a certain chunk distance. So, as you see here, we have 12 chunks, which I think is the default. It's just what I like it at. It's kind of what I set. It's what I set at normally for far. If you want it to be like a server, servers are usually by default set at 10 chunks. So this is pretty much will load just as much as you would be on a multiplayer map. Now, another one that you saw here is the frame rate cap. I should actually have this set at 30 right now because I'm using Fraps, and Fraps has it locked at 30 frames per second. The max it can go is all the way from 10 up to 250 for the max cap. Now over that you just have unlimited. My computer definitely couldn't handle it that well, so I'm not going to worry about that. The other settings that they add is they have mipmap levels. Mipmap is where the system automatically reduces texture sizes as a block gets farther away. So if you see this block over there, it's rendering in just as much detail as a block right here, but with a mipmap on, let's go back into video settings. There are 4 levels of mipmaps, so after certain distances away, the textures will get progressively smaller. That way it should take up less room when it's loading, and as far as I understand, that's what the mipmaps do. Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell here. I don't have like Optifine or anything, you know, so because this is just vanilla, so I can't zoom in and see what's up. Now, the anisotropic filtering. It's a function that the video card uses. It pretty much tells it that a far away object should have a certain amount of blurring to it. So trees, normally if you look at them when they get a little bit far away, they kind of do this little flickering thing. Supposedly turn this up should actually affect that so that there's not so much blurring or fizzling. It kind of makes it so things look a bit more accurate from far away than normally they would. It's something I don't understand too well how much it affects the game, but it is supposed to increase the quality. Now, the enable post-processing. The post-processing is a fancy word for shaders. Shaders are now something that will be officially supported, though by default there's no shaders on at this point. To enable the shaders, we actually have that super secret settings button. So there's a few different settings. I've looked through them before in that previous take, so I'll just go through them and explain to you what they all do. So let's go over to this area right here so we can look around. Now, first, new shader. As far as I understand, it just does a little bit of blurring along the edges. Kind of makes things a little bit smoother from far away. The trees, as you can see, they're not completely transparent. Now, the next one makes everything real blurry. It does some kind of effect. Oh wow, that is no good. Okay, it does some kind of effect where it outlines a block and makes a pixel a little bit bigger and blurrier, but the problem, the way it works is it doesn't depend on the distance you are from that pixel to show how big it is, and so these kind of pixels overlap and things look really blobby all the way away from you. Now let's go to our next one. Okay, this looks like it's the same one, except there's another filter on top of it. Everything looks a little darker. I'm not sure the difference between them. As stated before, I don't know exactly what they're changing with these. Now this one is a pencil-like effect. It looks like they've drawn around every pixel. Everything's done in black and white. And it just really kind of accentuates detail, especially from far away. And we go into our next one. This one is kind of an oversaturated look. So you can see the color's a little bit more rich than they are in the default look. But other than that, it doesn't seem like they've changed too much with this shader. On to the next one. This one, I still don't know what it is, but it looks like they've just taken the whole 3D anaglyph type option and they've turned it into a filter, like a shader. So instead of being just overall everything is 3D, it just kind of does a post-processing to add that 3D effect into things. Because like if you look at the closer things, there's not as much of effect, but at the farther away, like the trees and the clouds, you can see a much more distinct color difference. Now, onto this. This is Dinnerbone's famous upside down mode. Pretty much it just takes everything besides the GUI and flips it upside down right before it gets drawn to the screen. So it's not like they're rendering the blocks upside down or anything. They render everything normal and then the video is just inverted. Well, I think it's rotated, not inverted, so it'd be like 2 inversions. Anyway, let's go on to the next one. This one is a color inversion, so not really much different than the standard. So yeah, looks pretty much the same as the standard setup, no shaders, except they've just inverted every color. Let's go on. Alright, this one is like a TV style setting. It's supposed to look like an old TV. You got the scan lines, you got the kind of pixel distortion where you can see almost every individual like pixel color on the screen, and then it's distorted around the edges to look like a TV. That might be just a filter over the top, or it might actually be a distortion. I can't really tell. It looks almost like they distort the corner of the screen. On to the next. This, it looks like they, instead of this is almost like the pencil effect, but without desaturating everything. It puts a little border around every pixel. And so from far away, things like the leaves, they get really blobby or really sharply, really bright outlines to it. And as far away the details get, the more it just becomes that line. But the line is also a little bit more colored towards the edges of the blocks, it seems, than just the individual pixels, or at least the way it blends. It shows up a little bit better towards the edge of the block and instead of the whole pixel. It might be just transparent blocks like the leaves are the only ones that actually show it in the mid. It might just be around the transparent portion of the blocks. Okay, let's check out our next one. Now, this one, yes, this one's the crazy hyperdelic acid drip whatever filter. It pretty much just adds a post-processed filter. Anyway, the shader makes it so that it just continues to render something in a decreasing level of transparency, so pretty much overlays everything with a previous view of what it was before. It almost looks like motion blur, but I think it's a little over exaggerated, and plus the way it works, as you can see, like look at the tree here, the background actually will flood over the trees, where a motion blur wouldn't do something like that. It would more accentuate objects close by than in the distance. But I'm sure something like this can actually be implemented in such a way to actually use motion blur effectively. I'd like to see what they do as far as combining some of these towards a more, something like maybe one of those ultra realistic ones. Okay, now I was saying about this one in the previous take, it's seems to be just the same as the other one, except distant objects aren't so blurry, and it actually doesn't have as much of effect on my FPS. The other one will drop about 15 FPS off my recording speed, but this one I can usually get up all the way to 30. Now, on to the next one. This, I still forget what the what they call this. It's like a linear tracing. They take all of the pixels of a certain color group and it'll draw a line around that in the color of that pixel. But everything within the pixel itself is drawn black. Now, faraway objects are still drawn and look colored and properly saturated because the draw width of these lines around the pixels pretty much stays consistent. And so the farther away objects, these lines are larger in comparison to the black areas. And that's why you can actually see the distance a little bit better. I think some interesting things could go along with these high saturation filters, but I'm not sure how much they would affect real gameplay. I mean, like, what this would go into an official filter or something. But it's just nice that they can do some of this kind of things. It shows you the extent of the features that they can do as far as this post-processing goes. On to our next one. Now this, I think, after looking at it again, I think it's their 8-bit shader, and it just, all it does is it takes everything and it renders it at the same resolution no matter how far away it is. So farther away objects get more blocky, but close-up objects show up pretty normal. I also think they use some sort of palette limiting filter, so everything actually goes to a smaller number of colors, probably only like 256 colors instead of the millions or whatever that actually renders that normally. On to our next one. Okay, and this one is a kind of desaturated, lighter colored filter. This is one I actually would like, as far as just by myself playing, not recording it at all or anything. If I was doing any PvP or a similar type of thing, or where if I was doing like a UHC mode or something, this would be super useful because it feels like you can actually differentiate between objects a lot easier. It's easier to tell things apart. Like, you see the animals, the sheep and stuff appear really bright. If I go in and I spawn in like a creeper, they actually stick out pretty well, considering the fact that all the saturation is gone, just because their shades kind of differentiate themselves a little bit better from the trees and the leaves and the grass a bit better. So, yeah, and on to our next shader. Now this one kind of is a little really bad. Definitely you don't want to run in a creeper like this. They mix that TV-like setting as well as the 8-bit, and on top of all of that, they turn everything into a green hue. So, blow up. Blow up. Why don't you blow up? Anyway, let's go on to our next one. Now, this I think is just showing off how they can blur, though I don't know. I would prefer if they can do some sort of depth of field limited blur. But yeah, everything's just blurred. This is also, it's something that I think they need to work with their shaders is all of these blurred filters like this one. This drops me down to about 18 frames. So they definitely need to work on some performance issues with some of these shaders and how they're running. I don't know if that has to do with the coding for the shader itself or for the system that they're using to implement it. Now, on to this one. This one, oh, I actually did not see this one in the previous one. So we got some kind of worse acid trip. Everything gets wavy. It is moving back and forth, and the colors are constantly changing. As previously stated, a lot of this shows the different effects. Wow, I just noticed, you see these creepers? They're changing colors independently of everything else, even the things that are same hue. So like normally you'd think the grass would actually change pretty similar to this if it was just a flat out filter. So this filter is being applied per block, not just a over the vision type thing. So that's actually quite impressive how it filters over it. Is it filters over the blocks instead of just filtering over the view. It's a nice, interesting way to look at it that I hadn't noticed before. Okay, let's get on to our next filter. Okay, so this is another one of those little saturated filters, but they've added in a kind of like a lining around it, similar to the pencil-y or, you know, outline one. And it does some interesting effects as far as the far away objects go. Like these trees actually look a little bit more solid from far away. As you get close, everything kind of normalizes. It does have an interesting effect as far as field of view goes, because things do look a little more blurry and not so perfect so far away, and then these close-up objects you can see in good detail. I also like how the stone looks in this view. Gets a kind of nice like flat view from far away, but if you get close you got all these lines and detail. And this is probably one of my favorite. Like how this coal looks. I just get a little bit far away, things get a little bit blobby, but still nice color and detail, and it feels almost like the coal like bumps off of the surface from this far away, just because of how round it makes the lines. Okay, and then this one, very similar to the standard view, except as you can see, things away are a little bit blurry. So just kind of like I was talking about before, kind of a depth of field type blur, but more of just set so far away things are blurry. Okay, and this one, if I recall correctly, is a similar one to the previous one, but they make it a little bit less pronounced as far as the view goes. So just a very light blurring. And last, we can go and show what it looks like by default again. So yeah, not very much different from the normal view. Either that or it's the other way around. This one's slightly blurred and the other one's normal. It's really close and I'm having a hard time tell the difference between the two. So anyway, I guess no, the one that's slightly blurry is the one that we first went to look at, and that very last one was the one that's actually the normal view. So in varying ranges from extremely whacked out to things that are just slightly weird to things that are just a little bit minor improvements or changes to current views. They just have a lot of different things available with these shaders, and I like to see if they can get something even close to as impressive as like the shaders mod within this. If I did play with any of these right now, by default, I'd probably go with this oversaturated look just because I like how it has some of the colors. Some of the contrast is a little bit better, I feel. So anyway, that's it for today. I don't think they have any more features. They might have done a few bug fixes. They've fixed they fixed it now so that some things like structures and whatnot are working correctly, but I think that was actually in the last snapshot. They just fixed a couple things, not really much besides some bug fixes. They have released 1.6.4, which has a couple bug fixes, but is pretty much the official release of the next update, where you now can go out and pretty much they released 1.6.4 so that everybody can go out, make sure all of their structures are saved, so things like your nether fortress and other things like the witch huts and whatnot, all those structures where special mobs can spawn, you need to visit them in 1.64 so that you can make sure it's all saved in the new format. That way when you upgrade to 1.7, or if you decide to go to one of the snapshots, everything will work properly. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video and you found it interesting, and hope you're still looking forward to 1.7 and these new features. I know I am. We might actually switch to the snapshots if as I was saying before with the land generation, I don't think they're quite finished yet with how they're going to do it. I'm not sure if they are. And so I'd like to see if they do any changes or not before we switch to that for our main series. But for now, we'll actually probably switch to 1.6.4 now that it's like the official release and it's got some bug fixes, and we'll be able to get everything working on that. We'll go over to our nether fortress and make sure it's all loaded so that we don't have any issues with our structures. But anyway, thanks you guys for watching again, and subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll have another one of these next week, of course, like always. So bye bye.